Remember when MCU movies used to get respect? Critics would praise them without qualifiers about superhero fatigue or disclaimers like, it's good if you turn your brain off. I'm talking about the days of Iron Man, Winter Soldier, or even the occasional recent standout like No Way Home. Ah, those were the days. Nowadays, there are no heroes. Remember Ant-Man? A fun little movie, carried in large part by the undeniable charm of Paul Rudd. Shut up! Charm? You idiot! Scott Lang is the worst. Sure, he saved the world, but what has he done for us lately?
I literally saved the world.
Oh, did you? But yeah, you never mentioned that before. Everybody's got Save the World.
How is that for you, Scott?
You should write a book about it.
But wait, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Suddenly, a ray of hope pierces the growing darkness. James Gunn has been pretty consistent with quality, and this is his last bow at Marvel before taking over the DCU. And I have to admit, sitting in the theater last week, I felt like I was watching the best MCU movie since No Way Home or maybe Endgame. So afterward, I went online to soak up all the positivity, and to my shock, I did find positivity, but it was begrudging positivity. A lot of, it's the best of the worst, or it's pretty good but tonally inconsistent, or James Gunn needs to stop putting his friends and family in everything, it's distracting, or the one that had me scratching my head the most, it's emotionally manipulative. I definitely have my criticisms of the movie. I do enjoy the bickering between the main characters, it's part of what makes them feel like a family, but it's sometimes devolved into actual yelling and crossed the line into annoying territory. Regarding tonal inconsistency, sometimes the movie went into heavy territory before taking a sharp turn into slapstick comedy, but I never felt like one stepped on the other. When the movie took itself seriously, it took itself seriously, without undercutting heavy moments with inappropriate jokes. Now, some of the humor didn't land for me, but these moments never lasted long enough to be a problem. What about the idea that the movie is emotionally manipulative? My first reaction to that phrase is, isn't every movie? Hell, isn't every story emotionally manipulative? They're made to make you feel something you otherwise wouldn't feel, for events that are often completely imaginary. By definition, aren't we signing up to be emotionally manipulated? But I think what people really mean is that the movie is sort of cheating, or taking shortcuts to make us feel something. It doesn't earn those feelings. The biggest accusation on that front for Guardians 3 is that it uses the oldest trick in the book to make audiences sad: harming animals. By 2023, we've all seen so many people die on screen that it's almost become meaningless, unless you've done the proper work to make us care about the specific characters meeting their end. But animals are still pretty well protected on the silver screen, so when one gets hurt or is threatened, it'll move the needle. Animal cruelty is also a real-world problem that many are passionate about, so representing it on screen with top-of-the-line CGI pulls at heartstrings that are hanging lower than the lowest hanging fruit. So it might feel like James Gunn is taking the easy way out and tricking us into feeling bad. But I think that's only a fair criticism if these scenes only made you feel bad because of the real-world ideas they bring up, rather than tying into actual characters and leading to payoffs that make sense. Like, imagine if this movie had nothing to do with animal cruelty, but halfway through the movie, for absolutely no reason, Peter Quill stops off at a planet with animal abuse abound. Then he leaves the planet. The right reaction to that would be, you made me feel bad for a few minutes during that scene for no reason. What was the point of that? Can you imagine if a movie actually did that? Imagine like a Star Wars movie where the characters stop off at a casino/animal cruelty planet and Benicio del Toro is there for some reason. Anyway, obviously that's not what happened in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. By the way, I'm about to get into spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen the movie, now is your chance to bow out, see it, and come back. Personally, while I felt bad seeing harm come to helpless animals in the movie, I felt most moved when Rocket's friends were in the crosshairs. And those friends, in my mind, were not animals anymore. After the High Evolutionaries' experiments, they became anthropomorphized, like something you'd see in a Pixar movie. I felt for them primarily because James Gunn got me bought into their hopes and desires. They looked forward to the better world outside their cells, and I wanted to see them reach it. Gunn also got me bought into the relationship between them all. So when they met their ends, I felt the loss of dreams that would never come to fruition, and grief on behalf of Rocket. Yes, harm to animals was an element of all that, but the movie didn't rely only on that. It also put in the work to develop characters before their tragic ends. And what's the payoff? If it all ended there, you could accuse the movie of misery porn, but it ultimately built to a satisfying payoff. The backstory helped us finally understand Rocket, both his cynicism and need for acceptance, and it built up the High Evolutionary as someone we could really hate, which of course makes his demise all the more satisfying. By the end of the movie, I generally felt the emotional highs and lows were earned with character development and payoffs. I never felt manipulated, with maybe one exception. There's a scene where they're on that biology planet, which as a quick aside was very cool and a great example where this movie does Quantumania better than Quantumania. One of the exciting aspects of visiting the quantum realm is exploring weird sci-fi concepts. But in Ant-Man 3, it didn't feel like any of those concepts were actually thought out. Instead, it felt like a 5-year-old or someone on drugs just stream of consciousness coming up with a bunch of nonsense. In Guardians, there's something very weird, a planet and society where everything is made of some kind of biomatter, but it makes sense because it was all built by someone obsessed with evolution and creating the perfect organisms. Anyway, back to emotional manipulation. There's a moment in the battle on that planet where Drax is shot a couple of times. In the moment, all of the filmmaking tells us he's in danger of actually dying. Things go into slow motion. The music gets quiet and intense. These are the dramatic edits that signal things are dire. But Drax survives his wounds and shortly after seems pretty much unscathed. In retrospect, it feels like the movie lied to us. It tricked us into thinking things were worse than they actually were in the story. It would be like having a character shot off screen, only to then reveal that the bullet missed and they're fine. It's a trick because if the camera were pointed in the right direction, we'd have known the character was okay. So, in the world of the story, one thing happened, while the way the story was presented made it seem like something else was happening. It's a risky maneuver, because one, it could take you out of the movie, because instead of feeling relief for Drax, you might feel like you were just lied to, and it risks lowering the stakes, because the next time someone is in danger, you might think, I don't believe you, movie. I think that's a good example of emotional manipulation, but this is where subjectivity comes into it. I found the moment distracting, but I still believed in the stakes for the rest of the movie. I genuinely thought there was a risk that Rocket wouldn't survive when Quill started giving CPR. Though, to be honest, it pissed me off when Gamora kept yelling for Peter to let go. He's gone! That's one of my least favorite movie cliches. Anytime someone is giving CPR, some dolt is yelling, "Stop! They're gone! It's too late, you have to let go!" And she was wrong. Rocket survived. So if Peter listened to you, Rocket would be dead. I want you to think about that and think back on your life. Have you ever done this before? Have you ever witnessed someone giving medical attention and stopped them? How many people have you killed with your bad attitude? I've actually witnessed CPR up close and personal. This woman's heart stopped, and they did chest compressions for about 20 minutes, and she lived. Granted, they had one arm on her chest and one arm fighting me off while I was trying to stop them, telling them to let go. She's gone, you gotta let her go. Anyway, Gamora gave Peter about 30 seconds before trying to make him give up. Moving on. When Nebula took control of the ship and everything was exploding around her, I thought she might have to sacrifice herself. And when Quill ran back for the Zune MP3 player, I thought he might die in the void of space jumping between ships. But if that Drax moment or the Rocket moment pushed you too far, or for one reason or another you just didn't believe the movie, you wouldn't have felt the same emotional stakes that I did. And instead of feeling relief that a character survived, you might instead feel cheated. That's another complaint I saw. None of the main cast perished. That's really strange to me. As a society, we've developed this really weird attachment to watching people die. After a TV season or series finale, it's not unusual to hear, "Are you kidding me? No one died!" I think we need to let go of the idea that death is the only satisfying conclusion to a character arc. Even before Guardians 3 came out, I kept seeing headlines about who might die, as if that was part of hyping it up. James Gunn promises that no one is safe in this movie. Life and death stakes are obviously a huge part of superhero movies, so it's important that sometimes death is the way things go. But on the flip side, I don't think we should be disappointed when characters live. We should be disappointed if it's not believable when characters live, or if they live without consequences or without learning anything. But I don't think that's the case in Guardians 3. Every character comes to some conclusion regarding the challenges they've been facing throughout the trilogy, and things didn't just end with the same status quo. There's a new Guardians of the Galaxy led by Rocket. Quill is back home on Earth, finally reunited with his grandfather. Alternate Gamora has found herself a family in the Ravagers. Mantis is off to find herself. Drax has rediscovered himself as a father, and Nebula is taking care of the people on Nowhere. You can nitpick and point out the flaws in any movie, and it's worthwhile because it's one way to learn better storytelling technique. But whether or not those flaws make the movie bad or unenjoyable will be subjective. It all comes down to how bought into the characters and story you are. If you're fully on board, then you'll follow the characters, worry for them, cheer for them, and hope for the best. You'll be so caught up in the story, you won't notice the flaws when you're watching. No movie is perfect, so these two things are always in constant battle. For some, the story might not be engaging enough, so the flaws become more apparent. Or you might find the story engaging, but the flaws are so overwhelming, they eventually take you out of it. For me, the story of Guardians 3 mostly won out, and I didn't see the flaws until afterward. I love these characters, and enjoyed what seems like it'll be the last ride for at least some of them. It gives me hope for the future of DC under James Gunn's leadership, and I'm looking forward to the return of the legendary Star-Lord. What about you? Did you enjoy the movie as much as I did, or did you feel emotionally manipulated? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more. With that, thank you for watching, and see you on the next One Take.